George W. Bush. This gesture brings him into the international limelight.
Россия не понаслышке знает, что такое террор. И поэтому мы лучше всего понимаем чувства американского народа. Обращаясь от имени России к народу Соединенных Штатов, хочу сказать, что мы с вами.
Obviously, he was sympathetic, and I assume sincerely so. But it is also in the interest of the Kremlin and of Putin to ally himself with the United States and to make whoever is the opponent of Russia be viewed as a terrorist by the Americans.
Of course, this friendship gave the time for the Putinist Russia to build a new military weaponry and new force, again threatening, as they announce, threatening the world, to get eyes kept off Russian atrocities, even to the level of genocide in Chechnya, because Russia is needed for something other.
Since 9/11, the Cold War has become past history. Russia and the USA are on their honeymoon. George Bush has been invited to Moscow to sign a treaty on the reduction of their nuclear arsenals that neither country has any intention of respecting. The real reason for their meeting is quite different. The two presidents signed no less than 67 agreements on oil and gas. Shortly afterwards, Vladimir Putin declares, whoever controls the production, the distribution, and the price of oil controls power in today's world. With emotion, George W. Bush declares, when I looked deep into the eyes of Vladimir Putin, I could see a fellow soul.
Looking at the icy eyes of KGB agent and being moved by deepness of the soul, that is worrying. The West will awake, but the West is losing the time. The losses in time may be turned into losses in independence.
Energy is at the center of the political operations of Russia, and also internally, and also it's critical to Russia's presence on the world stage.
If you use that as opposed to ideology as the foundation for your increased position in the world, Russia is going to return to a significantly prominent position in the global affairs.
American multinationals see Putin's expansionism with a grim eye. They construct two pipelines bypassing Russia, from Baku in Azerbaijan to Ceyhan. The honeymoon between the USA and Russia is over. The first shots have been fired in the new energy war.
And pipelines are different than just general commercial agreements. Pipelines hardwire relationships. They represent an enormous investment of billions of dollars, and they create a link between countries that's really very different than almost any other kind of commercial arrangement.
The Yukos oil tycoon, Mikhail Khodorkovsky, understood this link long before Putin's arrival on the scene. At the fall of the Soviet Union, he and other oligarchs had associated themselves with Western companies, exploiting Russian oil fields to make personal fortunes. Khodorkovsky plans to clinch further deals with the US. He has also ignored Putin's warning to keep out of politics. Putin's reaction is as to be expected. Like Gusinsky and Berezovsky before him, Khodorkovsky is arrested for tax evasion. He's sentenced to 8 years in Siberia. His companies are taken over by Gazprom with support from Western banks invited to open branches in St. Petersburg when a certain Vladimir Putin was deputy mayor. Through the Yukos-Khodorkovsky affair, Putin makes it clear to the West that his new weapon is energy, and nothing will stop him from using it to rebuild Russia's greatness.
It was some kind of demonstration that power is the strongest institute in Russia. The president in Russia, the vertical of power in Russia, it is institute of something like Byzantine system, Tsar. Tsar decided and Tsar did it.
When Putin next summons the oligarchs, no one evokes the subject which is uppermost in their minds, the fate of Khodorkovsky. If anyone dares contradict the president, they know they are out for good. To elaborate his system of control, Putin creates his own oligarchy. State officials and members of his clan, they are all former KGB officers or St. Petersburg liberals.
Putin runs corporation. For him, Russia is a corporation. It's a business. They're nationalizing all the expenses and they're privatizing the profits. Gazprom is one of the best examples. The moment the gas enters the pipeline, it's a state monopoly. The moment the gas is sold, it's a private company. You want to find the cleanest oligarch system in the history of human race. Putin created this one. That's a time when there's no difference, no frontier, no visible frontier between business and the government. Money rules the country and the government controls the money.
So it's a different approach, but the substance is the same. The substance is that the law is not for us, that we are operating justice, that we are operating everything, that we can just do whatever we want. But he also brought ideology to that, saying that this is a way at the moment to create great Russia.
Mr. Sechin, Mr. Patrushev, Mr. Viktor Ivanov, Mr. Medvedev, Mr. Surkov, Mr. Sobyanin, well, I'm not sure the world knows about that, but of course Russians do know. They do know that Putin's lieutenants, unfortunately, these people who rule Russia on behalf of the presidency, they don't have one very important thing. They don't have accountability for what is happening.
That is vertical. I mean, that you cannot be more vertical than that. And so, you know, he did what he promised, and that's what's sort of remarkable about him. When he promised, it sounded like it's going to be beneficial to Russia. But somehow, when we turn around, all of a sudden, instead of benefiting us, benefited his idea of the state.
Vladimir Putin is candidate for a second presidential mandate in 2004.
Opposition in Russia is not fighting for winning elections. Opposition in Russia is fighting for having elections. Any election held from 1993 to nowadays was marked by growing government interference. And today, of course, it's not an election, it's a more of a Soviet-type vote when the results is already being fixed before the election results are announced.
In March 2004, Putin wins the elections with an outright majority of 71%. He has 4 more years to consolidate his policies. He presides over what has become a single-party system. His party, renamed Russia United, receives its orders from the Kremlin. Opposition parties have no power. Political debate has ceased to exist. To regain control is also Putin's objective for the former republics of the Soviet Union. They are more and more openly coveted by the United States, who are eager to create a barrier to Russian expansionism. Ukraine, symbolically and strategically the most important of these countries, is at the crossroads for the transit of Russian oil and gas to Europe.
С приходом Путина With the advent of Putin, a geopolitical project was created called the Single Economic Space, in which Russia had the main role. This project was entirely anti-Western and an attempt to weaken the influence of Europe and the US